Piru Creek is the finest piece of nature in this part of Southern California.
Protecting the wild lands and the scenic rivers on the West Coast. A broken promise in West Virginia.
You get angry, you get mad, you get sad. There's never a happy.
What was supposed to be a recreational dream is now a toxic nightmare.
Anytime you change your system that's worked for you, however long you've been farming, you're taking a leap of faith.
And for timber farmers and cattle ranchers, it's a healthier new world. Time to soar, starting now on This American Land. Funding for This American Land is provided by the Turner Foundation.
Hello, welcome to This American Land. I'm Ed Arnett. We've got some great stories for you today about the conservation of America's natural resources, our landscapes, waters, and wildlife, and the people who are dedicated to making conservation work for all of us. Our first story today comes from the central coast of California, where the Los Padres National Forest stretches some 600 miles north to south, and where conservationists are calling for new wilderness protection and preservation of wild and scenic rivers. We sent our crew there to find out why.
Los Padres National Forest is California's second largest national forest, about 280 miles north to south, comprising almost 2 million acres of land. Wilderness areas within it, wild and scenic rivers within it, but the work of protecting this landscape isn't done. There's still more work to do. I think the biggest threats to these areas are potential development in the future, which is hard to anticipate. Areas that are outside of wilderness, a lot of folks don't realize are open to road construction, development, power line transmission, all sorts of things. If we went back 100 years, you'd have a hard time believing that so much of this area was developed as it is now. The biggest threat really is just population pressures being pushed upon these last protected lands in the Central Coast. The goal of our proposal here is really about three parts: wilderness protection, wild and scenic river protection, which in turn protects the watershed, and there's a recreation component called the Condor National Recreation Trail. Those three parts all form together to make sure that this area is not only protected for the future use of the wildlife, but also that our $4 billion a year agricultural industry, just in Ventura County alone, is protected from the water sources that feed that rich Oxnard plain down at the mouth of the Santa Clara River.
My name is Larry Hogan. I'm a winemaker and a grape grower here in eastern Santa Barbara County. I've lived here, this is my 44th year, and I love it here. From the standpoint of our business, it's critical for us to have this watershed to recharge our aquifer, which provides the water so that we can grow these grapes and make our wine.
All of these hills and canyons that lead down to the coast are particularly important to us, not only for their recreation value. We get out here and we hike and camp, but also because this is the source of our drinking water for the city of Ventura. It's a real basic need that this place fulfills for us.
Just hold Jimmy, huh?
My name is Coralie McMillan, and my husband, Irv, and I ranch in San Luis Obispo County.
They're good working horses. You need to have horses to move those cattle. No four-wheelers on this ranch. My family arrived here in San Luis Obispo County in 1885. In 1935, my mom and dad bought the ranch here in Gillis Canyon. My dad was probably a little ahead of his time in understanding the importance of protecting large wild areas. He was very interested in the California condor and saw the condor go from that free-living animal to, you know, a domesticated animal. And that was kind of his feeling.
I think wilderness is important everywhere, but I think it's important here because we still have some left to save.
So here's an overlay map of our proposal here on the Central Coast in the Los Padres National Forest. The dark green areas are existing wilderness areas, and these yellow gold areas and some of these burgundy colored areas are proposed wilderness and scenic area additions. What we're trying to do is connect these island wilderness to maintain what is a really amazing linear corridor of public land, which is extended several hundred miles up and down the coast here in Central California.
This part of California is very unique in that, I mean, we're just, what are we, 70 air miles from, as the Condor flies from downtown LA. I mean, once in a while, I have to take a drive down to LA. And you come back here, then you really get it. It's like, okay. I really don't want this whole thing to go like this. I mean, I remember when LA was basically a small town, and I'm not that old, am I?
What we're looking at here is Pine Mountain and the Sespe Wilderness area behind me, and the striking white rocks that you see are Piedra Blanca. What we're working at protecting is the last stretch of the Sespe Creek for Wild and Scenic River designation, which is one of the last undammed water sources in Southern and Central California from its headwaters all the way down to where it connects to the Santa Clara River in Ventura County, California.
Piru Creek is the finest piece of nature in this part of Southern California. It's virtually untouched. Almost every turn in the river holds fish, and it's perfect for spawning. It's just a wonderful place for wild fish to survive and to thrive. The wild and scenic designation, in my estimation, is critical. Without it, people could build a dam, people could drill oil wells, and take away the wild and scenic nature of this area.
Pretty sure it's a spike elk. Isn't that cool? So you got better eyes than I do, probably. Look right at the base of that canyon. Do you see elk in there? I first started coming out here when I was in high school. What initially drew me to this area was solitude, but over the years I've been a close observer of the wildlife out here, and I'm constantly amazed. So the Carrizo Plain National Monument is 200,000 acres. It's an example of San Joaquin Valley habitat. There's a large concentration of endangered species here because there's no longer habitat for these species anywhere else but here. What we're looking at here is the Soda Lake. It's a prominent feature of the Carrizo Plain National Monument. So all the rainfall that occurs drains to the Soda Lake. In the summertime, that water evaporates and it leaves a layer of white soda or salts that leach from the soil on the surface. Soda lakes are a pretty unique feature. We get a fairly rare suite of plant and animal species associated with this soda lake here. We're very, very lucky that we've managed to preserve this area as much as we have.
We have to always be careful to keep the wilderness intact and to try to protect it from special interests. Woo! A rancher realizes all the hard work he has developing the ranch, that he wants this for his children. He wants this to be his legacy. It's the same exact thing for the wilderness, that we're keepers. We're trying to keep this intact. And while I'm the keeper now, my children, your children, you will be the keeper next because it's generational.
We've known for a long time that runoff from farms and ranches can carry chemical and biological pollution into rivers and streams, and that the Gulf of Mexico has been especially hard hit by those contaminants, causing a massive dead zone in the Gulf. In Louisiana, many farmers and ranchers are now trying their best to stop that pollution, as we see in our next story.
This is approximately about 72 acres of tract.
Landowners are real interested and committed to doing good things on their lands.
You're to be commended for replanting.
And that's important because within these watersheds, it all drains south into the Gulf of Mexico. And so what we try to do is make sure we have adequate cover, trees, grass, using good rotational systems, to make sure that we do our part upstream, because it also has an impact downstream and off-sites.
We're managing this natural system and all the genetic material that's here. We're not changing anything. We're not draining anything. I'm Dave Daigle, and I grow cattle and timber in Southwest Louisiana. There we go. We got a response. Come on! If there weren't cattle on this site, we know we'd have more brush problems than we have now. And much of this grass would cycle through the system without a product, for man's benefit. The longleaf pine tracts are growing a high-quality, heavy lumber that can supply existing mills for different products.
Let's talk about this ecosystem. The longleaf pine range in southeast United States is the second most diverse ecosystem in the Americas to the rainforest.
There's a Chinese TAL coming up, probably from seed source.
It's an invasive species. When it got to the United States, it exploded.
Fire is part of this system. It's one of the major forces that shaped this thing.
Last year, we burnt this through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. We put fire on the ground to control our invasives. The Native Americans knew if they burned this land that they could control the unwanted brush species, and it would also promote the tall grasses that the large ungulate animals would come and graze upon.
This is a tract that hasn't been burned in probably 10 to 15 years. So you've got all these brush species that are beginning to dominate. And here's a tract that we've been actively managing now for about 10 years. It received a burn this year in February.
And that fire's recycling the nutrients from the plant. It's putting it back in the ground. The nutrients are washing off into these beautiful flatwood ponds, being filtered. Clean water is coming off your farm into the streams, and we're cleaning up rivers, and eventually we're going to clean up the Gulf.
The public as a whole is demanding better water quality, safer food products, and we need to make sure we do our part in ensuring that our natural resources are protected and enhanced for the next generation.
I'm on the west side of
Okay, I see you over there now.
Even your traditional growers today, as a whole, they're all more concerned about soil health.
Right now is a great time to plant peanuts. I got it. We lost about 5 days last week. I'm Tim Mullet of Mullet Farms. You just resumed planting, okay?
I know we just endured a massive rain event last week.
Even with the flood, we're a no-till farm, and we had very, very little soil erosion. When you no-till it, the soil is healthier. It can breathe. It took time. We've evolved to where we are now. It's a family partnership.
You know, they used to plow everything, work everything up with conventional tillage, and I think as time moved on, the boys came back from college and joined the family farm back. That's when they really started adopting and going to the no-till and minimal till operations.
We need these cover crops, I'll tell you that.
What we try to do with our farmers in the county is offer them any kind of assistance we can, whether it be information or even incentives to implement cover crops. Anything that we can do up here on the upland, we know is going to affect the water quality as it gets eventually to the Gulf. Is that your dad coming?
Yeah. Organic matter, I mean, you can take sand and organic matter, mix them together, and you can grow something in it.
See, that's stuck in the ground. There's attachment. That's stuck. You know, this is stuck.
You don't want your stalks against the fence.
Right.
You want them out here.
Anytime you change your system that's worked for you, however long you've been farming, you're taking a leap of faith.
Take care. To be a good steward of the land, I want the land to be here when I'm gone. I'm just a temporary tenant. And I want to keep the soil here for future generations. I want to keep the fertilizer in my fields and not in the creek.
And this is Big Creek.
Yeah. Now, it's not big here. If we go over there, it widens out.
Right here.
No, 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 no. It's over there. You haven't been here for a couple of weeks. I'll have to get your mama and daddy over here.
Let's head out.
My name's Carolyn K.S. Falgu. Born and raised on a dairy farm. You know what I usually do when they shoot a camera at me? You know how they say you can take the girl off the farm, but you can't take the farm out the girl.
Yeah.
This is my grandson, Clint, and he's going to be the one to take over the family farm.
Could you send me a copy of that or in an email?
We help each other out. We're constantly doing different things at the places for each other.
The conservation plan implemented on this farm is dealing primarily with rotational grazing, utilizing fencing and water development.
That water's ice cold.
Rather than have them drinking out of the creek, we put several water troughs in every field. The programs that NRCS administers not only promotes conservation, but it mingles production and conservation together. Because really, if you're gonna make a living on the land, it has to be sustainable.
You know, the best management practices helps the farmer have a better image.
Ultimately, it is a livelihood.
Landowners are real interested and committed to doing good things. We're doing good deeds to protect, restore, and enhance the Gulf of Mexico.
We have another story now on coal ash, the hazardous waste that remains after coal is burned in power plants. The largest coal ash impoundment in the country spans 2 states and borders a third, West Virginia, where one community has had a bad experience with coal ash, contaminating their drinking water. This story was produced with Earth Justice.
My son was a year and a half, and a man come to the door and had a brochure, beautiful, it looked like Jamaica, and he said it's gonna be a place where you can picnic and bring the kids to play. And
I thought, oh great, they said by 2000s we're gonna have a recreation lake, that's nice.
The lake was a promise made by a coal-fired power plant now owned by First Energy. They dammed a stream and filled the surrounding valley with coal ash. They said the coal ash would harden and form a cement base where Little Blue Stream would become Little Blue Lake.
To me, it sounded great. I'd want a state park up there where you can take a camper up and camp, you know. But funny thing, things changed.
we just thought this would be where we would end up at and always be.
As the power company dumped coal ash into the valley behind their home, Kurt and Deb Havens started to notice changes.
It turned teal blue, and everybody then, it was a joke. It's sort of like, oh, we're in Jamaica.
People actually called it the Pennsylvania Caribbean. Then, strong odors began to drift through the neighborhood.
You could be sitting outside, and all of a sudden, here comes this whiff of rotten eggs, sewer, hydrogen sulfide. I, have to come in the house because of my breathing.
Deb started to track the smells. As the air worsened and the lake changed, residents began to wonder about the coal ash being used to create the lake. They learned that coal ash is a toxic waste created when coal is burned to make electricity.
What coal ash has are the toxic elements that are naturally found in coal. When you burn the coal, the burning concentrates those elements in the ash so that you have chemicals like arsenic, cadmium, chromium, selenium, thallium, deadly chemicals that were originally in the coal and get concentrated after burning.
Every year, coal-fired power plants generate more than 140 million tons of coal ash. State and federal agencies like the EPA have failed to adequately regulate this waste. Our household garbage is better regulated than toxic coal ash. So sites like Little Blue are essentially unlined and unmonitored dumps. There are more than 1,400 coal ash pits across America, and of all those, Little Blue is the biggest.
Well, I've lived off my land for some 20 years. My children grew up on this land with the expectation that my grandchildren would be on this land. And I can't do that anymore.
Teresa Cooper is one of the homeowners in the area who recently found out that coal ash has poisoned her drinking water.
Well, right now I understand the DEP has mandated First Energy to bring water from city up into my house. Unfortunately, that does not fix my world, being my cattle eat off the land. There's springs everywhere. My garden has many springs under it. You know, at what point is my garden no longer safe to eat? At what point is my water no longer safe to drink? You know, at what point is this happening? It's happening now, as to my understanding. To know that I potentially must pack up everything I own, everything that my essence has become in the last 20-some years, pack it all up and move it somewhere else, it is very disturbing. This is my home.
The pollution poisoning Teresa's land and the rest of the community has the exact same chemical makeup as the coal ash in Little Blue.
You get angry, you get mad, you get sad. There's never a happy.
So instead of the promised recreational lake, First Energy made a leaky garbage can 2.5 miles wide. Then they filled that garbage can with toxic waste. The more that coal ash poisoned their community, the more the residents knew they had to do something. Kurt filed Freedom of Information Act requests.
It's sad, these corporations puts money over health or money over families.
Deb and her neighbors started organizing the community.
I have to stand up. I'm not going to take this sitting down. And again, it's not just for me. It's for my people I've known all my life. It's for the generations to come.
Happy loves you.
Together, they all formed the Little Blue Regional Action Group, and nearly everyone joined the fight to save their neighborhood and their neighbors.
It makes people realize that yes, your voice can be heard, and yes, it does matter how you feel. You can make a difference.
They're like can-do people, and they did can-do right from the beginning.
They organized meetings, met with reporters, pressured politicians, and eventually filed a lawsuit.
If you have a permitted site, you have areas where you're allowed to discharge, you have permission to discharge. These were not authorized discharges, so these were violations of federal and state law. They caused the problem. They were uninvited, they intruded in on the neighborhood, and I think we filed a notice of intent to sue. And for the first time, First Energy and Little Blue were being told what they were doing was violating laws. Industry likes to divide and conquer. So if the community sticks together and the information is what holds it together, people are going to stand up and say, wait just a minute, as it should be. So there subsequently has been a federal court order for certain things to happen. One of it is closure of the nation's largest unlined coal ash impoundment. That's good news, but we're now working with the citizens to make sure that it's not only closed, but it's cleaned up. There's a lot of damage that has been done. How do we stop it and prevent any further damage?
We have to do something and quit polluting the ground and the air and families.
Now, here's a quick look at a story from our next show.
Millions of acres of public lands that belong to all of us. We'll look at the changing mission of the Bureau of Land Management.
From here on, upstream, for many miles, it's all Granite Canyon lands, managed by the Bureau of Land Management. Those of us who live here in the West are really fortunate to be able to enjoy these lands whenever we wish. But we have to remember that these lands are part of our public land heritage. These lands belong to all Americans.
Thanks for watching. And remember, you can always watch us on thisamericanland.org. We'd like to hear your comments and ideas on stories that you think we should cover. We'll see you next time.
For more information about this program, visit thisamericanland.org. Funding for This American Land is provided by the Turner Foundation.